Hey, what up? Hold on. Okay. I think we good. All right. Play a little Battlefield real quick. Chill, you know what I'm saying? Shit, my controller keep dying though, so hold on. Get this motherfucking cord. Yeah. Alright. Are we good now? Hey, let's see, what's good? Let me see what videos we got.
We've locked down Alpha 2.
Oh yeah, this video.
And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you to FlatEarthDave.com. Those that are really hard to K. $19.99 a month. You can also be a sponsor of this channel.
Lunch break.
We are moving to attack Alpha 1.
Put that link right in the description below. Thank you. Here we are at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and focused in on the Altgeld Hall. Construction began on June 10th, 1896, and took a little over a year to complete, which is not an issue in the 1800s. Of course, we all know this by now, which is completely insane. 1 year to build this in 1896? And what is with the current day construction on these places? First Detroit, now here. In both places, they aren't even doing anything that I can see. Are they just putting up scaffolding and just going to take a picture and make it black and white to make it look old and rewrite the history and pretend like it's just being built again? I wouldn't be shocked at all if they do this all the time and we're just figuring this out. And are you ready to blow the narrative away? Are you ready to have some fun this week? Let's do it. There were so many architects that could draw like this in the 1800s that they needed to hold a design contest. Are you kidding me?
Everybody.
And this isn't even the best part.
It's funny.
Let's keep reading. The trustees awarded the prize to Edward, a young man with no experience in building design. I'm not gonna lie to you. The first time I read this, I laughed out loud. How insane is this? Young Edward gets to build this, and he has no experience in building ever in his whole life. Take a look at this place. This place is more impressive than pretty much anything we construct today. Yet it was built in a year by a random guy who has no previous experience. What have we just found? I feel like this should open everyone's eyes at this point. This is not logical thinking to believe this insane story. Now, if you continue reading below, they say the cornerstone was laid on September 11th. Interesting. So not June like we're told earlier. So 13 months and this thing was all wrapped up and ready to use. No mention of any construction company, of course. No mention of how many construction workers were needed. Where did the materials come from? Nothing. Just simply finished. Now, we have talked about bells before, and how, of course, in my opinion, and many others' opinion, the previous civilization were extremely aware of frequencies and sound vibration healing powers. These bells were no ordinary bells. This building is holding the Altgeld chimes. Installed atop the 132-foot tower are 15 bells, weighing a total of 7.5 tons. At this point, this building's narrative is beyond sketchy. Which company was responsible for the bell installation? Supposedly, this was a gift from a graduation class, but the fact that it no longer works should raise a few eyebrows. Does it not work anymore because it is now hundreds of years old? In my opinion, yes. I'm just gonna be honest. I am 99.9% sure this was a gift, but not from a graduation class. It was a gift from a past civilization, and we have no idea how to operate it. Each lever is marked with a musical note, giving it almost a complete chromatic scale. Is anyone else's graduation class giving away complete chromatic scale bells 132 feet in the air this year?
Hell no.
Of course not. The Altgeld Hall, amazing stuff. I was going to go over the Alpha Delta Phi fraternity house, which was also supposedly built in just 1 year, but I kept scrolling down and of course, it was demolished in 2018. They got to it before we did. Which is another reason why this research is very important right now. We all need to understand which building to look out for. There should be no demolition going on without us even noticing. And I wouldn't be able to find another old world building on this campus, would I? Well, of course I will. But it also wouldn't be built in 1 year, would it? You bet it is.
Definitely.
The Alpha Gamma Delta Fraternity House. And this one is still here. But wait, what is this? Did the narrator get lazy and use the same sentence for multiple buildings and think that nobody would ever notice? French electric style. Popularized in America after World War I, was it? Well, if you didn't catch it the first 2 times, here they write the same sentence, yet again for another building. So we definitely know that we have the same author for these narratives. And is this individual trustworthy? Well, we have caught this individual in a few lies already. If someone lies to me once, they might get a pass. Lie to me twice, now you have a liar. All of these narratives are no longer considered the truth in my eyes. Now let's continue. Again, I have mentioned in past episodes how I am fully confident in my opinion that these current day college buildings all around the United States, and for that matter, around the world, are found and repurposed. They are the reason that a college or university now sit on that specific site. And of course the sorority groups get the good buildings. And as I've mentioned in the past, normally an architect will get the nod for a few old world buildings. A great way to explain them away with one guy. As for this George Ramsay guy, he was in charge of this masterpiece that was built in a quick year, as well as the Virginia Theater, located right down the road, and built 7 years before in 1921. They don't give any information on how long the construction process was, so it probably only took a couple hours in 1921. And here we have a restoration process that didn't seem like much of a restoration process, and rather a demolition and replacement process. The locals were not happy, and this is when you know they removed things that were from the old world. So I went and I walked around this area a little and found this building. This used to be the United States Post Office. Now it is a cultural center. It's not the name that I'm interested in, obviously. Look at these windows. They were constructed before this road. They had to leave space here so that they didn't close the windows up. This is crazy stuff. In my opinion, this is proof that this building and many other buildings in this area are much bigger than we can see. How can anyone look at this building and not have questions? Windows under the ground level, but needing to chop out the road so that the windows aren't underground leading to nothing. How many of these buildings have exactly that? When you go in their basements, you look out the window and all you see is dirt. And over here, right across the street, you can clearly see that these buildings were here before the roads. Look at how they have filled these windows in, and how the sidewalk is coming up higher and higher on the building, covering more and more of the building as we go. Even this closed up window right here is basically underground now. This is not the way it was originally constructed at all. It's very strange. And I bet you anything that this building has windows in the basement that look straight at the dirt or are covered up with brick. And if anyone thinks that this is normal to brick up your windows on so many old world buildings, I totally agree with you. I'm actually gonna go brick up all my windows on my house right now. And half of my other window in the back is gonna look like it's going underground. And the other half will be above ground. And that's completely normal. No, it's not. How ridiculous does that sound? And yet, we see it all over the world. We now have 9 episodes where we have gone and seen an old world building. They're all on the Boots on the Ground playlist here on YouTube, everywhere from Scotland to California, Michigan, and Illinois. And we have much more on the way. The old world is everywhere, and we're working on exposing it all. We have plans to visit New York within a year, and I would love to go back to Europe as well as Australia. The time for walking past these buildings, unaware of what's right next to us, needs to end. We all know deep down that these buildings have a deeper meaning, a hidden past. We can feel it just by looking at it. They are different. They hold the keys to the past civilization. These buildings are in nearly every town in the world. And like we saw today with the Altgeld Hall in Urbana. But did you know that there's another Altgeld Hall in Illinois? I'll be visiting this castle building and hopefully walking through it very soon. Oh, and there's another one at Southern Illinois University, of course. It's very clear that this civilization was worldwide. This architecture blows ours away. It lasts forever, and it doesn't need our help. We've proven that it withstands earthquakes, and it wasn't built by a random guy that doesn't have any previous experience in just a year. That I can guarantee you. When you understand that the previous civilization was able to construct like this, you can then go deeper and ask, what else were they capable of? What other technology did they have? And what other technology did they leave behind, just waiting for us to discover it, like we're beginning to right now?
Damn.
At the time of recording this, I was unaware of what I just read. And what I just read made me kind of sick to my stomach. Here on the Facebook page for the University of Illinois, they are destroying this building. It's not going to look anything like how we saw it in this video. It's going to be modernized, and you can see the picture right here. They are actively destroying these buildings, and it's really sad, to be honest. People are excited about it in the comments below in this Facebook page, and it's really too bad. So this video will probably be one of the last videos that anybody will ever see this building as it is being destroyed.
That's crazy.
Don't forget, I was unaware. You can then go deeper and ask, what else were they capable of? What other technology did they have? And what other technology did they leave behind, just waiting for us to discover it, like we're beginning to right now? At the time of recording this, I was unaware of what I just read. And what I just read made me kind of sick to my stomach. Here on the Facebook page for the University of Illinois, they are destroying this building. It's not going to look anything like how we saw it in this video. It's going to be modernized, and you can see the picture right here. They are actively destroying these buildings, and it's really sad, to be honest. People are excited about it in the comments below in this Facebook page, and it's really too bad. So this video will probably be one of the last videos that anybody will ever see this building as it is being destroyed.
That's crazy.
Don't forget that there are a bunch of brand new t-shirts. You can find that right below this video. Every purchase really helps support the channel and goes towards more boots on the ground work. Liking this video and commenting helps to share this video with new people, as well as when you subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, right. It definitely helps. Help him out. Lunch break, you know what I'm saying? Hold on, I'm gonna look for another video here shortly. Oh. Something at the corner of my eye, though, real quick. Hold on. It's almost over. Damn, we lost.
Hello, folks. Today we are visiting one of the main hubs of the Luciferian agenda in London. This is the home of the Lucis Trust, and ironically is right next door to the United Nations. I'm sure many of you know that the Lucis Trust was originally named the Lucifer Publishing Company, and there was good reason for that. The Lucis Trust was founded by the theosophist Alice Bailey, who wrote a 10-point plan for changing society in the direction of Luciferian principles and to destroy Christian values. As a disciple of Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey believed Lucifer to be the light bearer. They teach that Lucifer didn't fall due to sin, but actually made a sacrifice for our benefit in order to liberate us from a tyrannical God. This doctrine is so twisted and evil, as I'm sure you would agree. Now, remember in the book of Genesis, the serpent's deception, how he lured Adam and Eve into the knowledge of good and evil. He said mankind can become as God. This is exactly the same lie that we see being pushed in these theosophical New Age movements. And the reason that we're going in here today is so that you can get a clearer picture of the type of philosophies and doctrines that are indicative of this Luciferian movement.
Damn, they got the music bumping. Pretty good.
Look at this place. It's very ornate. It's like a 5-star hotel. It's like a palace. And this is where the Lucis Trust are based next to the United Nations. Now today I'm going to take you into the Lucis Trust library so that you can see what kind of philosophies are being pushed.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Doctrines of devils.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables.
Dang, he got wet up.
See, even Hinduism here, all these false religions are celebrated in the Theosophical Library. And what does that say to you? That even some churches are promoting practices like yoga.
It's all evil. Look at that.
Now there are stacks and stacks of books here by both Alice Bailey and her husband, Foster Bailey.
Warning, Alice Bailey, Lucifer Publishing.
Damn. Hey, yo, Heroes fan, what's up there? What's up, what's up, what's up? I see you over there on Twitch, man. Shit, I'm watching this crazy ass video right now. There you go, School of Lucifer, apparently.
Warning, Helena Blavatsky, Theosophical Society.
Giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
They got a bunch of occultic books. Or occult books.
Giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
Got him in the head. Nothing?
Look here, they've even got books on the Jesuits.
They got everything.
For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
Shot in the leg.
In these last days that we're living in today, and I believe that they are before Jesus returns. Satan is pulling out all the stops and is working overtime in a futile effort to defeat God. You see, Satanists believe and teach that Satan was wrongfully ejected from heaven. It's a lie, of course, because, as Michael said, he was rightfully ejected from heaven because of rebellion and pride. But everything's twisted, you see, and distorted and backwards. And Satan, they say, was wrongfully ejected. And they say that Satan had a part in creating the world of God. And he was wrongfully ejected from heaven. And one day, he'll regain his rightful place. So the more evil that's done, and the more evil that's condoned upon the earth, the quicker Satan will rule, they say. But we know the truth that one day, Satan will be thrown into the lake of fire for all time and destroyed with all the demons with him. And I'd like to say this today, that the devil is very busy and is educating people, and is educating them very well indeed, because these are the last days. But we can look up, can't we, because our redemption draweth nigh.
Yes, we can.
And it says here in 1 Timothy chapter 4, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And that's what's going on today. And Jesus said that in the last days wickedness will wax worse. And we don't have to look far, do we, to see that this is true.
We can't underestimate the power of the devil, nor do we want to glorify him here today.
No.
They're teaching these things in some of the schools. Right. They are actually teaching the occult.
Yes.
They're teaching things like meditation. TM, you open up and call on the name of what they call a mantra, and the people who know some of the occult religions know that that's the name of one of those gods. And of course, those gods are real beings. They are these fallen spirits who are impersonating a God, who wanted to be God in the first place. They wanted to take their leader, Satan, and push him above God. And they wanted that worship, they wanted that authority without having to obey God. And so now they try to draw people to worship themselves. And those names, those mantras are actual evil spirits. And people open them up to devil possession.
Oh, shit.
There was this guy, a Jewish guy, who was a retired psychiatrist. And for the last 30 years of his life, he had been practicing Christianity. And as he got older, he felt like he needed to some way be connected to the Jewish people. But he was really into Christianity for 30 years. So I suggested that he put on tefillin every day. He said, no, I can't do that. That's too far from practicing Christianity and suddenly putting on tefillin. That's too radical. Something less, I don't know, obvious or less. Just wanted to be connected to Jews. He calls back a few days later, and he says, where do I get the tefillin? I said, what happened? Why the change of... He says, because Christianity doesn't work. I said, after 30 years? He says, my profession doesn't allow me to accept it. His profession, he was a retired psychiatrist.
Damn.
But you've been doing it for 30 years. He says, let me tell you what. We know, we psychiatrists, we know that if a man were to say to a woman, I love you very much, more than anything in the world. You are the love of my life. You're not interested? Your loss. We know, he says, that that man never loved that woman. If he's not vulnerable, if it doesn't hurt to be rejected, then you never love. And when you claim to love, it's manipulation. You're playing with people's feelings. You didn't love her. There is no love without vulnerability. Christianity says God loves you more than anything in the world. You're not interested? I tried to save you, but there goes another one. So Christianity basically says God loves you very much. And if you're not interested, go to hell. Forever.
Forever.
Thank you very much. So he says, I can't. I can't believe in Christian love because they don't believe in God's vulnerability.
All right, that's good enough.
If God is not vulnerable, then he doesn't love you. He's not really angry at you either because he doesn't care. You got to care to get angry, right?
Right.
So the first thing that we taught the world was that there's one God. They didn't get it. They said, oh, no more statues? Okay, no more statues. They didn't get it. One God means he cares about everything. He doesn't need an assistant God to take care of his plan or his needs or his... He needs, he does, he is God. There's only one. Our message to the world is that there is one God who does all the caring. If you don't add that, you're not being helpful. We can't get over the fact that God needed us and took us out of Egypt. Why would we ever get over that? If he stops needing us, it's not good news. So we are celebrating our first encounter with God's need in Egypt. That was when we saw that God needed us. Until then, we believed that he was the creator and you gotta listen to his laws. Now we found that it's not his laws, it's his needs. Well, it's a whole different story.
Put it right there. Fuck.
What do you think?
I need it.
So when a person says, yeah, I thought about doing mitzvahs, but who needs it? Good question. Who needs it?
Damn. Who needs it?
Who needs all these commandments? Let me guess. The commander? No? Who cares about this universe? Its creator? Just guessing.
How does a tzaddik and Rebbe play in all of this?
Well, in a very practical way, every tzaddik, every Rebbe is a model of how you can do for God and have a life worth living. People say, oh yeah, well, you can't really, God expects a lot. How can you? It's doable. Look.
It's doable.
Here's a guy doing it all. Looks happy. Looks healthy. Who says it's not doable? And even if I don't do it all, That's because I'm not Superman. But it is perfect.
Right.
So whatever part of it I do, that's perfect. And I'm still not perfect, but who cares?
Right.
Really, who cares that you're not perfect? No, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. That's funny.
When people would come to the Rebbe private meetings, one of the most common questions that they would ask is, what's my purpose? What should I be doing? I could do this, I could do that. What should I be doing? And the Rebbe could identify, like a good, what they called? Hmm? And people tell you which job you're best suited for. What do you call it?
Vocational expert.
Yeah.
A vocational expert. There you go.
The Rebbe could say, you know, you're better suited for this or for that. And people walked out with a purpose, plan. They got their life together, and they started to live. Because that's what a human being does. He fulfills his purpose.
And how would that translate now?
You might say that now, the smallest things that need to get done, that's all that's left to do.
Right.
All the heavy lifting was accomplished by our ancestors. Not ancient. For us, it's just the finishing touches. A little more, that's... So whatever you can do, that's what you need to do. Shouldn't even waste time asking. Look around, and whatever you can do to make things better,
do it.
Go for it. Just don't be retired. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in.
For VIPs,
it's informal,
bro?
It's questions and answers.
Hold on, let me try to get a kill. Not over there. Oh, fuck. Oh, he had a shotgun, too. Got my shit sprayed up. Here we go.
Listen to anything that judge says. He's blowing smoke, okay? Smile, nod your head. When you get in that jury room, you vote not guilty. And the rest of the jurors are going to think you're nuts. What do you mean not guilty? You saw. Yes, I know. But the law's no good. Jury nullification. Powerful, powerful story here. Anyway, the Constitution does not mention separation of church and state. You should get the Federalist Papers. Those are all the papers that the Founding Fathers wrote as they were developing this Constitution. And you can see their thinking process. The same day they voted for the First Amendment, you know, which people often say separation of church and state, which is not what it says. It says that the government shall not make a religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof. But that same day, Congress voted to send $25,000 to help a Catholic missionary start a mission to help the Indians in St. Louis. They were not trying to separate church from state. They wanted to keep the state out of the church, but not keep the church out of the government. No phrase in the Constitution about separation of church and state, and it's perfectly fine for Christian teachers to do all kinds of Christian things in their school. My brother taught 34 years, public school, had a picture of Jesus right by his desk all 34 years. Many teachers keep a Bible right on their desk. Now, if they give you a hard time, the principal might say you can't do that. I'm not saying you won't get persecution, but as far as legally, you can. There's lc.org, libertycouncil.org, Matt Staver's organization. He handles cases like that. David Gibbs, they do stuff like that. David Gibbs, it's his organization in Orlando, Florida. So yes, if you have trouble, you know, see one of those folks. But what happened, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to some Baptist pastors, and he's the one that mentioned the phrase in the letter, separation of church and state. And now the atheists are using that to say, oh, you can't have Christian things in government. What a dumb idea. Our country was founded to be a Christian country. They all said that. Go to wallbuilders.com, David Barton's great website. He's got lots of stuff on. There's no such thing as separation of church and state. So don't fall for that. And we can cover more on that in our college class. Here's what's happened, though. The Constitution to the United States, Article 1, Section 10 says, you have the right to make a contract. Let's suppose Adam says, Brother Hovind, I'm going to pay you $10 an hour the rest of my life. Okay, and he signs a contract. And then he does not fulfill the contract. Well, then I can sue him. And he could say, I've got a constitutional right to keep my money. Yes, you do. But you also have a constitutional right to make a contract. And you made a contract. So the judge is just going to uphold contract law. Okay, a question that I very frequently get asked, I would say every single week I go speak, which is 52 weeks a year now for 16 years. Every single week somebody will say, now Hovind, how do we see stars billions of light years away? You say the Earth is only 6,000 years old. How do we see the stars? Yesterday on the radio program, on the website, Dr. Dino, some guy called in and said, now, Hovind, I did some studies, and in a 6,000 light year radius, we'd only have so many cubic miles, and all the stars wouldn't fit. I said, wait. Who said anything about a 6,000 mile radius? He said, well, you're the one that said the universe is only 6,000 years old. Yes, I did. But I did not say all the stars are within a 6,000 light year radius. I've never said that. That would be ludicrous. But how do we see the stars billions of light years away if the universe is only 6,000 years old? And I believe the Bible clearly teaches it's only 6,000 years old. And God made everything. Actually, He made the earth first in Genesis 1. And then verse 14, He made the stars also. Evolution says He made the stars evolve first and then the earth. Well, there's certainly a lot of stars out there. Nehemiah chapter 9 says, Thou, even Thou art Lord alone. Thou hast made the heaven of heavens. God is claiming that He made them. So, either He did or He didn't. But what about the stars? How do they fit in? Astronomers can see a star blow up about every 30 years. It's not like it's on a timetable. It might be every 5 years, might be every 50 years, but on an average, every 30 years, a star explodes. And they're looking out there with their telescope and say, oh, wow, there's a new one. A star exploded. It's called a nova. Or if it's a big one, they call it a supernova. Nova in Spanish means no-go. By the way, the Chevy Nova did not sell very well in Mexico for that reason. Hey, do you want to buy a Nova? No. Why would I do that? It won't go. But stars blow up every 30 years. Well, they've searched the heavens with these telescopes looking for how many supernova rings are there. They call it a dead star. Or they can find less than 300. Now, wait a minute. If there are less than 300 supernova rings, and one happens every 30 years, you can do the math. I mean, that's about 9,000 years. If the universe is billions of years old, there ought to be a whole lot more supernova rings out there. Why are there less than 300 supernova rings? Because it's less than 10,000 years old? Boy, they don't like that answer at all. But that's the logical conclusion. Anyway, if stars are blowing up every 30 years, we would have to have at least one star born every 30 years just to keep the balance. I mean, countries that have a population problem because they're getting less births and deaths, like Germany, more people are dying than being born. Oh, well, eventually that's going to create a problem, okay? Stars should have to be born. Nobody's ever seen one star form, not one. We see them blow up all the time. They've never seen a star form, and I'll cover that in a second. Its last estimate by Hubble telescope was that there are 70 sextillion stars.
Where'd they come up with that number?
70 sextillion.
What?
They say the universe is 20 billion years old. Well, you can do the math. That means 6.5 million stars would have to form every minute. We'd have to have 6.5 million stars forming every minute for 20 billion years to make the stars that we know about. That doesn't count the ones we don't know about because we can't see them yet. Who knows how many stars are out there? Sometimes the textbooks will say, well, there are new stars being constantly born in clouds of gas and dust. This is so stupid. How a physics textbook can teach this, I don't know. Anybody that knows freshman physics knows when you try to squeeze gases together, pressure builds up, temperature builds up, and it drives them back apart. It's called Boyle's gas law. Nobody has ever seen dust collapsing into a solid. It would take such incredible pressure to do that. I was in a debate one time, and this professor, I asked him, I said, how can you get dust to collapse into a solid? Explain that to me. He said, well, we calculated that if 20 stars explode near each other, it'll produce enough pressure to make a brand new star.
Bullshit.
I said, now that's brilliant. You got to lose 20 to gain 1. I said, you ought to run for Congress. You could help those guys borrow their way out of debt, you know. It's not going to get a universe full of stars if you got to lose 20 to gain 1. And even that is only theoretical. It's never been observed, okay?
All that shit.
I was in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and they've got a science center down there, and they showed these pictures of star babies. He said, oh, this is a new star forming. No, sir, it's a bright spot, okay? One guy in Science magazine admitted, the silent embarrassment of modern astrophysics is we do not know how even a single one of these stars managed to form. Nobody knows how stars can form from dust clouds. No one has unambiguously observed material falling into an embryonic star, which should be happening if the star is truly still forming. And no one has caught a molecular cloud in the act of collapsing. Precisely how a section of interstellar cloud collapses gravitationally into a star, a double or multiple star, or a solar system is still a challenging theoretical problem. Right. Astronomers have yet to find an interstellar cloud in the actual process of collapse. The origin of stars represents one of the most fundamental unsolved problems of contemporary physics. This guy said, no one really understands how star formation proceeds. It's really remarkable. Nobody knows how this happens. So if they tell you new stars are forming, you tell them Kent Hovind said they're confused or they're lying. Because nobody knows how it happens. There's not even a good theory how you could squeeze dust into a star, and there's certainly no evidence. But here's what happened. They see bright spots appear in the clouds. Or not in the clouds, in the dust clouds in space. They look at this Crab Nebula or Eagle Nebula, and they're staring at it, and all of a sudden one day a spot gets a little brighter. Oh wow, a star's being born. That's immediately their conclusion that a star is being born. I said, wait. Maybe the dust in front of it is clearing and the star was already there. Maybe it's a star blowing up. Maybe it's another supernova. Because that's what happens when stars supernova, they get really bright. They don't know that a star
is... this video. Let me give Kent Hovind a break. Let's check out this video real quick.
This is the Sea of Tranquility, the area where humans first walked on the moon. And this is Arizona. If these pictures weren't labeled, this is the Sea of Tranquility, the area where humans first walked on the moon. And this is Arizona. If these pictures weren't labeled, there would be almost no way of telling them apart. Each crater is exactly the same, down to the size and location. This isn't some weird hoax, nor is it a physical phenomenon. This place was meticulously created by NASA to look just like the moon. With the help of explosives, this random field in Arizona was instantly transformed into the most moon-like place on Earth. Nowadays, the craters have been mostly reclaimed by nature. But why did NASA create this place, and what did they do here? We modeled the entire thing, and in this video we're going to look at the incredible lengths NASA went to in order to get humans on the moon. We'll also be giving away this Apollo framed print.
I don't know about all that. Hold on, let's see. Let's get him through it.
When they got there, unknown. And so with NASA about to put humans on the moon, they realized that studying the rocks, craters, and materials on the surface could teach us a lot about how the moon and Earth came into existence. The problem was, the astronauts' time on the moon was very limited, and so maximizing the amount of science learned from each trip was absolutely crucial.
Oh, of course,
That's where Cinder Lake came in. Before astronauts ever stepped foot on the moon, they had to become experts in geology. They had to be able to just look at a crater and determine how old it was. They had to be able to give detailed descriptions of rocks and materials as they were walking around the lunar surface. And so, NASA set out to create the moon's surface, and it all happened in this field near Flagstaff, Arizona. Located near a former volcano, this field was covered in volcanic gravel, which NASA thought would be similar to the material on the moon. But creating a 1-to-1 scale model of the Apollo landing site was far from easy. Unlike finding a therapist online, thanks to BetterHelp, here's a quick advert about...
He posted the ad in the perfect spot. It was not bad.
In order to turn this field...
Matter of fact, let me get a drink real quick. Hold on. Give me a sec.
In order to turn this field into the surface of the moon, the team in Arizona used... In order to turn this field into the surface of... In order to turn this field into the surface of the moon, the team in Arizona used... That's right, dynamite. Not only were they trying to match the exact size and location of each crater, but they also wanted to replicate the different ages of each crater. Based on the lunar orbiter photos, NASA could determine the relative ages using something called superposition.
Bullshit.
This is the simple principle that younger
again?
craters will lie on top of older craters. So, if a meteor hits an existing crater, it will destroy part of the rim and create a fresh circle on top. If we look at this set of craters, it's obvious that the larger crater was made. In order to turn this field into the surface of the moon, the team in Arizona used... That's right, dynamite. Not only were they trying to match the exact size and location of each crater, but they also wanted to replicate the different ages of each crater. Based on the lunar orbiter photos, NASA could determine the relative ages using something called superposition. This is the simple principle that younger craters will lie on top of older craters. So, if a meteor hits an existing crater, it will destroy part of the rim and create a fresh circle on top. If we look at this set of craters, it's obvious that the larger crater was made first, and then the smaller ones came later. And so, in order to replicate the different ages, the team in Arizona marked out all 143 craters and split them up into 3 different categories: new, intermediate, and old. They placed precise amounts of dynamite under every crater mark to get the right sizes and blew them in sequence, starting with the oldest craters first and working their way through to the newest ones. The result was incredible. In an instant, this random field in Arizona was transformed into an extremely accurate depiction of the Apollo 11 landing site. But what did NASA do with this place? One of the first problems the astronauts would have to overcome when landing on the moon was figuring out where they actually were. Although NASA had a landing site in mind, the actual spot the astronauts touched down could be anywhere within 5 kilometers of this area. Without knowing exactly where the astronauts had landed, NASA wouldn't be able to guide them to the most interesting craters or track where they had gone. This made NASA ask the question, could astronauts accurately locate their location just by comparing their view from the lunar module to a map of the surface? This is where Cinder Lake came in very handy. A mock-up of the lunar module was placed at a random location in the crater field, and 28 test subjects were each given 30 minutes inside to try to find their location. A large portion of the test subjects were actually geologists. Some were mathematicians, some surveyors, and the rest had a wide range of backgrounds. Even with prior experience, this is a very difficult test. Looking from above, it's much easier to understand the geography of what's around us. But when you're on the surface, it becomes much harder to use the craters and rocks as reference points. On top of that, we don't have the same sense of depth on the moon. Without an atmosphere, distant objects don't have the same haziness as they do on Earth. And so a large rock placed really far away could easily be mistaken for a smaller one that's much closer. Even NASA had no idea what to do, but they were hoping that the test would reveal the quickest technique. Each person was given this real satellite image of the moon and 30 minutes to mark down where they thought they were.
Real.
If they couldn't locate their exact position after 30 minutes, they would be given progressively smaller maps, shrinking the search zone all the way down to just 1/64th of a kilometer. If after 4 hours they still couldn't identify their location, they would fail the test. The results were pretty interesting. Out of the 28 people, only 6 were able to find their location using the 1 kilometer map. 12 people found it using the second map. 8 people found it with the third map. 1 person got it with the fourth map, and 1 person failed the test. But what was the best method? The test subjects started searching for various things: pairs of craters, larger groups of craters, and lines of craters. You might think that a line of craters would be more noticeable and therefore lead to quicker success, but none of the 28 test subjects found their location using this method. Those that started off with this method eventually switched to a different method. By far, the most successful method was searching for pairs of craters. But why? NASA figured that remembering the shape of 2 craters was much easier than visualizing a much more complex array of craters. The key breakthrough for most of the test subjects was locating this pair of craters here. Despite many failing the first attempt, NASA were confident that with much more training and knowledge of the area, astronauts would be able to locate themselves fairly easily. But when it came time to walk on the surface, they needed to know what to look for. After all, the moon was a place completely untouched by humans, and so astronauts were effectively the eyes and hands for scientists back on Earth. In Cinder Lake, geologists started to train the astronauts on how to identify specific rocks and collect samples. They went through field exercises where they would communicate what they were seeing by radio back to a group of scientists. This is when NASA realized something. It became clear that it was really difficult to know what the astronauts were doing and where they were just with radio. And so they started experimenting with transmitting live video from Cinder Lake. This made it so much easier for NASA and the astronauts to work together, and thanks to this breakthrough, NASA decided to do a live broadcast for every moon mission. All in all, astronauts trained here until the Apollo program ended. Over the course of each mission, astronauts brought back more than 380 kilograms of samples from 6 different areas on the moon. Each sample was stored in a different container that preserved them, allowing scientists to study completely untouched moon samples to this day. All this was possible thanks to this small little field in Arizona. And now, time for the Primal Space giveaway. The winner of the
small field in Arizona, huh? All right, if they say so.
I just really want to ponder this question today. No matter who you are, where you're listening to this video from across the world, I want to ask you this question. What do you really need in life? What do you need? What else do we get satisfaction from in this world? Now, your first thought right off the bat might be, well, I need food and water in order to survive. That's what I really need. And which is all well and true. They are of themselves good things, and we do need them. But then it's not long before we become hungry and thirsty again. So do they really satisfy fully? Are they even that long lasting? Well, I'd like to introduce you to someone who called themselves the living bread and the living water. And for those who come to him shall never thirst, shall never hunger again. One thing I can admit here today is that I have a desperate need for Jesus, and I fully realize this, and I fully know this.
Oh, they said, watch this if you seek the truth. Proselytizing. Sheesh. Hey. Hold on, man. Let me see. Let's see what he say. Quick, short.
The bottom line in Judaism is Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. To serve God. To serve God is a privilege. To serve God is a purpose. To serve God is a reason to exist and to be, and so on and so forth. Whereas Christianity promises that God will serve you. So imagine 2,000 years ago coming to the Jews of Israel and saying, we have good news. You needed 613 mitzvahs to get to heaven. You can get to heaven without them. And that would be good news if the premise had been correct. But Jews never observed mitzvahs in order to get to heaven. Now, the Mishnah says, don't be like a servant who serves for the sake of a reward. So it was never a Jewish thought to try to get to heaven in exchange for mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are there because this is what God needs from us, and we can serve him by doing them. Now imagine somebody comes along and says, you know, God needed you in 613 different ways. Well, he doesn't need you anymore. That would not be good news. So why don't we believe in Christianity? It offers to serve you, and we're not looking for that. We want to serve God.
Short and simple. Pretty loud at the end, though, but got the message.
Why don't Jews believe in the Christian Savior?
Let's see.
I was speaking to a minister, a pastor. Very nice guy, but very direct. So as soon as we were introduced, he says, "So do you believe in the Savior?" I said, "Actually, I'm not looking for a God who's going to help me and serve me. I'm looking to serve God." This man started to cry. He says, "I've been ministering for 46 years, and I never even thought of that. You're so right. Does God exist to serve me? I should be serving him." That's the difference between Judaism and Christianity. We don't need an intermediary to serve God. So
there you have it. Pretty short and simple,
why
right?
don't
Play
Jews
it one more
believe
time.
in the Why don't Jews believe in the Christian Savior? I was speaking to a minister, a pastor. Very nice guy, but very direct. So as soon as we were introduced,
Very
he
direct.
says, "So do you believe in the Savior?" I said, "Actually, I'm not looking for a God who's going to help me and serve me. I'm looking to serve God." This man started to cry. He says, "I've been ministering for 46 years, and I never even thought of that. You're so right. Does God exist to serve me? I should be serving him." That's the difference between Judaism and Christianity. We don't need an intermediary to serve God.
Right.
So
they don't want the middleman.
There's no need to be saved. We're not here to be saved, because that doesn't really make much sense. You're born in sin to no fault of your own, and then you need to be saved from that? Whose plan is this? Or who messed up the plan? No, we are here to partner with God to bring God down to earth where God wants to be. So the real difference is, don't go to heaven. Don't go to heaven. Bring God down to earth. That's serving God. Going to heaven is self-serving. So the need for a savior, an intermediary, a trinity, there's no need. And besides, he was a nice Jewish boy. Jews shouldn't worship Jews. That's a little
Jews shouldn't
incestuous.
worship Jews. That's funny. Well, that was informative, to say the least. In case you didn't already know, Jews don't.
Why have the majority of Jewish people rejected Jesus? Why have the majority of Jewish people rejected Jesus? Reason number one is it is simply an emotional, knee-jerk reaction that they have to Jesus because they believe that you can't be a Jew and believe in Jesus. Let me give you a conversation that I recently had with a close relative of mine. I began to gently witness to this individual about Jesus. As soon as I said Jesus' name, this person became filled with rage, filled with intense hostile energy, and said to me, "I'm a Jew, don't say Jesus to me." This individual that I'm referring to doesn't even believe in God. They're not a practicing religious Jew. They simply believe that being a Jew is not believing in Jesus. And so although many Jewish people, the majority, are not religious, Judaism to them isn't a religion, it's simply a cultural identity. But as a cultural Jew, they believe that you can't be Jewish and at the same time believe in Jesus. This mindset is not something that they have thought through logically. It's just something that they have picked up in their home. It's something that they've picked up in their culture. It's something they've heard since they've been little children. We're Jews, we don't believe in Jesus. It's not based on logic. It's not based on an analysis of the scriptures, at least an honest evaluation of the scriptures. It's simply
apparently
based
he's on the side of, I guess he does believe in it. So they don't agree with each other. What it sounds like. Conflicting information, which is normal for this type of stuff, so.
Enemy forces have set explosive charges.
Okay.
This is a different question. Is people who are Christian are asking, why for Jews is Jesus not the Messiah?
Yeah. Again,
It's a
excellent
good question.
The question can logically be asked. In fact, I'm sure you know this, the very early Christians did regard themselves as Jews. Jesus himself, of course, regarded himself as Jews, and many of the apostles, in fact, were Jews. And they considered themselves Jewish. In fact, Peter himself differed with Paul, and Peter took the position that a follower of Jesus should practice circumcision and keep kosher and keep the Shabbat because they were Jewish. So the question, and of course we have Hebrew Christians this very day, the question is, well, why can't I be a religious Jew, believe in the Torah, and still say that Jesus is the Messiah?
Exactly, that's what they want to know.
I would say that Judaism has three fundamental issues with Christian theology. Issue number one, which does not go to the messianic aspect of Jesus, but to the divinity and the Trinity and the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Our problem would be that we believe that God has never and will never assume a human form. And once you deal with the reification or the corporalization of the deity, you are violating a tenet of God to being infinite and non-material. Now that of course goes to the divinity, and that was a later development in Christianity.
That makes sense.
In terms of the messianic vision, because let's say I say, well, I don't believe that Jesus is God or Son of God, but let him be the Messiah, which we do believe in. So I would say there are 2 points. Point number one is that classical Jewish literature does not accept the notion of a second coming, and that is once the Messiah reveals himself, he will accomplish a designated mission of getting the Jews back to Israel, rebuilding the temple, and hopefully establishing world's peace. Now, Jesus, of course, was crucified. Jesus was murdered before he completed any of those things. And because of that, Christianity developed the idea of a second coming, that Jesus will come back.
He's gonna come back.
The mission,
he like your dad, he'll be back.
Normative Jewish theology is concerned.
He just went to go get some milk. He'll be right back.
Get the job done, and he's not going to die and then come back. That is point number one. Point number two, which is actually a more important point, is, and again, I'm not going to get into the debate whether Jesus said it or the apostles or later people said it, but the notion that of the New Testament, the notion that God has abrogated his covenant with Israel, and that God has replaced the Sinaitic revelation with justification by faith, which is really Paul's innovation. Paul created the idea that
all right, that's enough of that, you motherfucker.
Stars forming. So don't let them tell you that we've seen stars form. Nobody has seen such a thing. All we do is we see them blow up, which is the opposite of what evolutionists need. Now, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years, and he made the stars also. Here God is claiming he made the stars, and it says in Psalm, he counts the number of the stars. Not only how many there are total, but each one has its own number. So God will say, oh, this is star number 42 trillion, 718 billion. He knows the number of each one. And it says, praise him, ye waters that be above the heavens, in Psalm 148. This is the only verse that says anything like this. Waters that be above the heavens. Now in Genesis 1, it talks about verse 6 and 7, water that be above the heavens. I believe when God first made the world, it was very, very different than what we see. Mostly land, instead of the huge oceans that we now have. Most of that water was in the crust of the earth. We covered that in video 2. But there was earth and there was heaven, singular. King James is the only Bible I'm aware of that gets it right in Genesis 1:1, where it says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. All the rest of them say heavens. Okay, that's a mistake. There was heaven, which means expanded place. There was earth, and then from here on out. Then he divides it up into 3 slices. First heaven, second heaven, third heaven.
We won.
The first heaven is where the birds fly. Genesis 1 talks about that, verse 20 and 21. Then there was water above the firmament. Now, some creationists do not believe in the canopy theory. I understand. I've read their stuff. I think they're wrong. I still believe, and some accuse me, well, you don't agree with us, therefore, you're not a good creation scientist. To keep up on your research. I keep very much up on the research, and I disagree. It's not that I haven't read it, it's that I have read it and disagree. Okay?
Exactly.
But I believe there was a layer of air for Adam to breathe, layer of water above to protect him, and then a layer of stars, and then more water. The only verse I have to back it up is right here, Psalm 148. Praise him, ye waters that be above the heavens. That's present tense. Is there still water above the heavens? Psalm 104 says, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Could it be that there is another layer of water beyond all of outer space? Maybe everything that we see as this universe, which looks like huge, maybe everything we see is inside water, a crystal, and God is outside of that, the third heaven, 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Could there be a third layer where God lives? Of course, God doesn't need a place to live. He just is, Psalm 29 says, the voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The Lord is upon many waters. Maybe everything that we see when we step out at night and say, wow, look at all these stars. Maybe the whole thing's a little snow globe on God's dresser, that he picks up and shakes once in a while. How you doing in there? I don't know.
How you doing in there?
But the Psalm 148, the waters that be above the heavens, people have often asked, hey, where's the last star? And once we find it, what's on the other side? I don't know the answers to those, but just the possibility is that there, according to the Bible, may still be water above the heavens. But there's a lot of stars out there. Hubble estimate was 11 trillion stars per person. That is 76 trillion.
That's some bullshit. I'll be right back. Give me a second. Like 2 minutes. Let me try to get a kill first, and then.
We must hold the line, defend our objectives, and maintain control of the sectors.
Requesting the range to drop at these coordinates.
Couldn't make it to the spot. I'm dead. Help me, please. I'm behind cover. There's a medic right there. Holy shit. Know it. Damn, motherfucker pulled up right on me. I was trying to kill that sniper. Come on, medic. Requesting medical aid. Fuck are they at? Holy shit. Just blew up right in front of me. Shit, what the fuck? Got blown up again. It's crazy right now. All the sweats on the weekends. But hey, this is how it goes. I ain't getting no aid this time. Medic can't get me this far away.
Hostile soldier! Northwest!
Fuck, let me get up here.
Look out! I'm not far!
Holy shit. Holy shit, what the fuck? Damn! That shit crazy, boy. Oh, medic. Holy shit. Can't see him now. Come on, where can I put it right here? Oh, he got hit in the face.
Enemy forces have set explosive charges.
Oh, motherfucker was right there. Looking too slow. To the right. Right there though, bro. Hey, medic. Holy shit. Oh, I'm too far in the water. Can't jump up there. I'm stuck. I killed 3 people though. Finally. Alright, let's finish what he was talking about.
Billion divided by 6 billion people. Every one of you gets 11 trillion stars. What happened, they told the Hubble telescope to focus in on a dot. They found a dot above the Big Dipper. You can see the picture of it there. It is about the size of a grain of sand, held at arm's length.
Damn.
And it was black. They said, we don't think there's any stars there. Let's focus in on that spot and see what we can find. They took pictures for 10 days straight, focusing in on that dot. After 10 days, there were more stars in that dot than they could count. These were brand new stars, never been seen before. Called it Deep Field, Hubble Deep Field. Looking up there saying, man, that's stuff we didn't know about. Assumption would be that it's that way all through space. Truly, the stars cannot be numbered, which is what the Bible says. They cannot be numbered. But how do you tell the distance to the stars, and how can the Earth be 6,000 years old and the stars be so far away? Fair question. Stephen Hawking said, stars are so far away, they appear to be just pinpoints of light. We cannot see their size or shape. How do we tell different types of stars apart? For the vast majority, there's only one thing we can see, and that is the color of their light. If you get the biggest telescope on Earth, this is not it, by the way, spotting scope, but if you get the largest telescope on Earth and look at the closest star, which is Alpha Centauri, 4.5 light years away, all you're going to see is a dot. If I focus this in on the sun, it'll start to get, bigger and bigger, and you can actually see flames leaping off and see the spicules, and you can see color changes, and you can actually see features of the sun. When you look at a star, you never get to see that. Nobody has ever seen a star as far as any of the features of it. You get the biggest telescope on Earth, it's going to be nothing but a dot in your scope. All you can tell is, I said, that's a red one, that's a yellow one, that's a blue one. That's all you can see. So anything we do, we have to do based on assumptions just from the color. But how do you tell the distance to the star? Well, I taught high school trig for years, and if you guys had trig, you know how it works. If you have 2 observation points, you can calculate the third distance.
Triangulation.
You have to know it. It's solving a triangle. Trigonometry deals with triangles, so you sine, cosine, tangent. If you know one distance and 2 angles, or two distances and 1 angle, you can calculate the rest of the triangle using sine, cosine, tangent. Here's the problem. Earth is only 8,000 miles in diameter, which compared to star distance is 0. It's nothing. So if I'm looking at a star and somebody over in China is looking at a star, we are 8,000 miles away from each other, straight line through the Earth. That would be nothing. What they've done to enlarge the distance to look at a star, instead of just being opposite sides of the Earth is also going around the sun in this great big huge circle. We're going 66,000 miles an hour, and it takes us a year to go around. Great big racetrack. Well, the distance from the Earth to the sun is about 93 million miles, average. And that's a lot, but at the speed of light, it's not much. At the speed of light, it's 8 minutes away. It takes the sunlight 8 minutes to get to the Earth. So if we're 8 light minutes from the sun, the diameter of our orbit going around is 16 light minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a star in January, and then we're going to look at a star in June, and we have now gone halfway around this monster circle. And we're going to get 2 observation points to try to enlarge the base of our triangle. And it sounds huge. Man, that's 186 million miles. Well, it's still not much. A year has 525,000 minutes in a year. If this picture here showing the little yellow dot was the scale, if that yellow dot represented Earth's orbit, not the Earth's diameter, the orbit of the Earth, it's way too big for the picture. What we're going to do is try to show you the math involved here. If I had 2 surveyors setting up with their transits or telescopes, and they are 16 inches away from each other, and they're both looking at a dot 525,000 inches away, which is 8 1/3 miles. Would you agree that would make a rather skinny triangle?
Can I get one?
Let's go out in the parking lot and draw a triangle with point A and point B 16 inches apart, and point C 8 1/3 miles away. It's going to make a real skinny triangle. That is exactly the triangle you get when 2 people on opposite sides of Earth's orbit try to measure 1 light year. 1. Now, And I'm not sure you can tell exactly where you were 6 months ago. I think that would be a little stretch of the imagination to say, oh yeah, 6 months ago in January we were, where were we? I'll give them that. I won't even argue that. I just would bring that up, you know, for appeal, Your Honor. In case we need to.
Damn, they were right there.
You can't know exactly where you were 6 months ago. But the angle you get with that is 0.017 degrees. Now let's imagine this. I want you to get two guys to set up their surveying transits. They're 16 inches apart, and I'm going to go put a dot 8 1/3 miles away, but they don't know how far away it is. They're both focusing in on the dot, and they see this dot out there. Here's the only information they have. The measurement between themselves, 16 inches, and the angle out of parallel.
That's it.
I say, guys, I want you to calculate how far away that dot is based on that little angle change you get. I think that would be difficult to measure. 1 light year. You'd certainly there'd be some guesswork involved, okay? Now, if you want to measure 100 light years, you got a much worse problem. Now you got to move your dot 830 miles away. If we had two guys on the roof of this building here in Pensacola, Florida, 16 inches apart, and they're both focusing on a dot in Chicago, which is 830 miles away, but they don't know how far away it is, they're going to tell me how far away it is, based only on their angle of their telescope out of parallel. I would say that's impossible. Impossible. To measure 15 billion, no question that's impossible. I don't think you can measure 100 light years. Not with real numbers, not with real measurements, but this textbook says they can measure, parallax trigonometry can measure up to 100 light years. Okay, I doubt it, but I'll give them 100. I'll give them 1,000 if they quit crying, okay? The fact is you can't measure a billion.
Blew up some people
Simple
with
fact.
C4.
So here's some things to consider about starlight. It said in 2004 that the new SIM technology, Space Interferometry Mission, they hope to get where they can improve the distance of measuring to stars. And they say this accuracy will enable SIM to determine stellar distances to 10% accuracy out to a distance of 482,000 million miles. That's 82,000 light years. And then it says, this is an improvement of several hundred times over what is possible today. Well, now wait a minute. If they're going to improve it several hundred times, and it ends up being 82,000, what's 82,000 divided by several hundred comes out to be several hundred. Apparently they're admitting they can only measure several hundred light years, which I would agree. I mean, I would say that's even a stretch, but I'll give them several hundred. They can't measure billions, is the point. So when you students in school get taught, oh, that star's, 14.629 billion light years away, I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. It might be, but you can't prove that. They're making up a story. With SIM technology, they hope to finally be able to get out to where they can measure most of the way across our galaxy, and we're in it. We can't even measure across our own galaxy, let alone these distances to other galaxies. So I think we should look at the stars and say, wow, what a mighty God we serve. Instead of going out there and say, well, we know how far that way it is, we know it evolved. I mean, it's just that egotistical attitude some of these atheists get, makes you want to slap them in the face like, man, why don't you serve God? Look what he made, Here's the things to consider concerning starlight. Then we'll take a break. Number one, we cannot measure these great distances. It just cannot be done. Number two, nobody knows what light is. They call it a wave or a photon or a particle. We know what it does. We use it all the time. But actually, give me a jar of it and paint it red. Nobody knows the substance of it. What is light? And we sure don't know that it always travels the same speed all through time or space. The entire theory behind a black hole is that light can be attracted by gravity. Well, if light can be attracted by gravity, then you cannot say the speed of light is a constant. Okay? At Harvard University back in '99, they slowed light down to 38 miles an hour. The next year, they slowed it down to 1 mile an hour, and the next year brought it to a dead stop. Light goes, pretty quick, 186,000 miles a second. They slowed it down. It was done at Harvard, it was done at Smithsonian, it was done at Cambridge University, a repeatable, demonstrable experiment. Now that is science. Exactly. If you do an experiment, get a result, somebody else follows your data, does the same experiment, gets the same result, that's science. They slowed light down. This article came out on Fox News Channel. They said, we've succeeded in holding a light pulse still. They brought the speed of light to zero, brought it to a dead stop. Meanwhile, back in 2000 at Princeton University, they speeded light up to 300 times the speed of light.
I think you meant sped light up.
So when somebody says that star's 10 billion light years away, which I doubt they can measure, therefore that we can prove the universe is 10 billion years old, they got several problems in their logic right away that they probably don't see, which is why we do these seminars, so we can help people understand. It's 300 times the speed of light. Astronomer Barry Setterfield, Australian government astronomer, said, during the last 300 years, 164 measurements of the speed of light have been published using 16 different measurement techniques. The speed of light has apparently decreased so rapidly, experimental error cannot explain it.
All right.
This is a chart showing the decline in the speed of light from the published numbers in the last 150 years. You notice the decline in the chart. The speed of light's getting slower until about 1960. For the last 40 years, anybody that's measured the speed of light gets the same number, 186,282.4, I think, miles per second. Who cares? Well,
okay.
It could be that it leveled off in 1960 for two possible reasons. Three possible reasons. Our way of measuring is getting better. Instruments are getting better. We're smarter. You know, everybody in the past was dumb. We're smart. We got it right. Could be. That's what they'll tell you. Second option, though, is we're at the tail end of a logarithmic curve, and you're much less likely to see any decline. As you get further out on the logarithmic curve, it pretty much levels out. But a third reason is 1956 is when they invented the atomic clock. And they started using that as their clock to measure the speed of light. Well, now, wait. The atomic clock is based on the wavelength of a cesium-133 atom. So the clock is based on the speed of light. Now, if you have a clock based on the speed of light and you're measuring the speed of light with it, if the speed of light changes, you're never going to catch it with that clock. It's like watching two twins grow next to each other. Well, neither one's growing. Well, duh. You got a rubber ruler problem here. Clear back in '87, they said the speed...
He's like, all right, yeah, I didn't understand that, but all right, whatever. Get back to Kent Hovind later.
Things get really weird. Dense or darker area, but that's not what we see. Instead, we see an alternating pattern of light and dark bands. This is characteristic of the behavior of waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. The bright lines are where the top of waves meet, resulting in a more intense or brighter area on the screen. The darker bands are where the top of one wave meets the bottom of another, so they cancel each other out, resulting in a less intense or darker area on the screen. Here is a photo of a real interference pattern. The original double-slit experiment was conducted in 1801 by British polymath Thomas Young. Since then, it's been performed with various types of particles, including electrons, and they were found to behave in the same way. This phenomenon occurs even if the photons are fired one at a time, which suggests that the photon is interfering with itself as it passes through both slits at once.
Physicists were so stumped that they decided to observe which slit the particle went through.
And that's when things get really weird. When scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared, and the photons started behaving like particles. Instead of the spectrum of light and dark bands, we see two bright bands, indicating that the photons chose one slit or the other. So light can display characteristics of both particles and waves, known as wave-particle duality. It appears that light decides to behave as a wave when it's not being watched, and acts like a particle when it is being measured. The mere act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons, almost as if they were aware they were being watched. It's kind of like how in a video game, the environment and objects only load when the player focuses on or interacts with them. The entire world isn't rendered all at once, allowing the game to save processing power and optimize resources. Likewise, light seems to behave like waves, but when we observe it, it's as if we're loading its properties, causing it to change and act like particles. Physicist Richard Feynman famously said, "The double-slit experiment is absolutely impossible to explain in any classical way, and has in it the heart of quantum mechanics. In reality, it contains the only mystery." The most widely accepted...
The only mystery. That's it. Read this one about.
Do you think politics and religion matter in a relationship?
Yes.
If so, why is it often said not to discuss them on a first date when it seems to be the first thing you'd want to talk about?
Because on the first date, you're told to be the very best version of yourself. It's often a bit of a facade.
You're
putting
lying,
out,
that's why.
your best foot forward, and you don't want to scare people off or have anybody have the wrong intentions and get into any kind of heated arguments. Religion brings a lot of heated arguments and passion about people, and I think sometimes you just want to keep it lighthearted.
Maybe not the first date, but a few after. I feel like it's crucial. I mean, you can't have a relationship with someone if you don't have the same values and views on things.
I have to know their values first. We're like pretty big Christians, so we gotta know their values.
So if a person avoids politics or religion on a first date, can you assume they don't want a relationship?
Somewhat, because you don't know what they really want, if they want to hook up, if they want to be with you. You just don't know.
If a person does bring up politics or religion, can you assume they do want a relationship?
Yes, because they want to know your character. They want to know, hey, maybe I want to know if this is the person for me in the future.
Well, the church believes in marriage, and the church gears people to think of how to date and how to get married. It's very geared towards doing that.
What value does marriage still have in a secular society?
For me specifically, I believe it still is religion and is based off of love. This is the standard that we can be within as Christians or any other religion that you believe in.
In the Bible, Eve had the entire Garden of Eden to herself, essentially paradise.
But that wasn't enough.
Yet she still had to have that apple. What can that story teach us about female nature?
That
You can give them the world, but they want the universe. Maybe something like that.
they just don't listen.
Well, God said that the woman is a weaker vessel. It's in the Bible. And he doesn't mean that to put a woman down in any way. It's just her nature. And that's why the serpent was able to beguile Eve and not Adam.
Can we conclude that you can give women the world and they'll never be satisfied and only want what they can't have?
Yes.
So why should men even bother trying to please women if they're never satisfied?
I honestly don't know, because women always want like hella shit.
Since Eve was the first one tempted by the snake, why does society shame men more for giving in to temptation than women?
Wow. You asked some really good questions, man.
Well, society might do that, but even though Eve was deceived, Adam was still accountable.
Yeah.
He was still responsible because he was responsible for Eve.
I would say this, it depends, because when God created man, he created him first to tend the land, and he told him what not to do, and then Eve was created from the rib. So after that happened, you could say that man had the responsibility to tell her, but it was up to her to sin.
Why is it all on the lady though?
Because she committed the first sin.
But he did it as well. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. She brought it to him, so he trusted her, and he was wrong for doing
but
that.
But is Adam not the first one created? Like, he's supposed to have some in here too to tell him like, I ain't supposed to.
What does Adam being the first one creative have to do with who created the first sin?
That's very important. He created the man first, as what I was saying before, that the man's supposed to lead. Because this all.
What is the biblical story of Lilith, and why have few people heard of her?
I wouldn't say it's biblical. It's more of Jewish mythology, and they consider her to be Adam's first wife. She went against him. She didn't want to be controlled, and that's where feminism came from.
I mean, who was really there to document Adam and Eve, right? But it's a concept, truly, that everyone has attached to, a myth that everyone's attached to. Man wants the woman that walked away from him, so it's almost like a sense of revenge.
Why is there more religious pressure on men to be providers than there is religious pressure on women to be virgins?
Because I'd say society's pretty hypocritical and sexist.
Because we have feminism, which tells you your body's your body, and we've never really stemmed away from the Bible, where men were created to lead and tend.
I feel like men have a lot more pressure than women to like
definitely
provide and try harder, and women have a lot less expectations. So
why is prostitution mentioned more in religious history than actual history?
Well, with religion, I believe it is true history, But back in the day, in the Hebrew word porneia, it came from the root, which means porn. And back in the day, people were looking at porn, watching porn, having sex with prostitutes in the Bible.
Why does religion frown upon sex when people are more likely to praise God while having sex than in church?
Wow, that's a really good one. Okay.
I don't think we don't frown upon sex. We frown upon the boundaries of sex, which should be in marriage. I believe marriage is sex.
Can people have morality without religion?
Marriage
Yes.
is sex.
Where does morality come from?
I feel like morality just comes from yourself, like your thoughts, your beliefs, like it depends on who you are.
Morality just comes from doing the right thing, not stealing things, not causing trouble with people, not bothering people.
Religion means different things for different people, and whatever they believe in is what they believe in.
Can you think of any type of human interaction or relationship where the golden rule isn't the best policy?
No.
So then why do we need religion as opposed to just follow the golden rule?
Well, we don't need religion.
I think religion can
we don't
be a
need
certain
religion.
rigidity and rule that might even block your own spirituality from growing.
Because religion's a hoax.
The drunk lady know what it
They're
is.
just trying to make us all restrain, and it's been going around for hundreds of years, and modern day society doesn't believe in us.
Can people have morality without religion?
Yes. Yes. There is. You can make up a religion tomorrow if you wanted to.
Clara, preach it.
You can make it up.
Amen.
Religion was made up by people hundreds of years ago, and we just still believe it now. I can make up one tomorrow, and you could all believe it.
Are women more likely to believe in things like astrology and crystals than men are, and if so, why?
That's funny.
I feel like women are just more influenced by social media too, because I find that there's more women on social media, and the more like things like this trend, they just kind of follow it.
I suppose so. Couldn't really tell you the reason why, but I enjoy them. I wouldn't say like I'm really into it, but I enjoy them if men are into that.
I think women are more in touch with their feelings, which is linked to zodiacs.
When you were born has nothing to do with who you are as a person, in my opinion, because who you are more so has to do with the people you hang around with, the atmosphere you grew up in, things like that, who raised you as a child. That's more so what has to do with who you are as a person.
Women are delusional. That's why.
That's why.
And they have to hold on to something like false hope, and that's astrology. They
want to know everything, and if they don't have answers, they'll find answers somewhere else.
Exactly.
Men are supposed to focus more on the material world and providing, and the women's supposed to go way out there and be really like spaced out about it. There's this expectancy, and yet there's a condemnation around it at the same time.
Are women more likely to believe in astrology or believe in God?
God. I think God. What do you think? I don't even think.
My generation, astrology for sure.
So isn't it really just one religion replacing another?
Yeah, pretty much.
They like astrology.
But instead of
Youngsters.
a god, we believe in the stars.
Religion is based on having a creator. Astrology, I would say, I do astrology. I was in it, but honestly, it's demonic. So it depends on what creator you're looking to.
Why do so many men think women were put on this earth to serve them, cook, clean, and pump out babies?
Well, to a degree, that is true.
That depends, because woman was created from a man's rib to be a helpmeet, and we are women, which means we have a womb of a man. So we were made for that, but we're more than that.
Why do so many women think men were put on this earth to serve them, risk their lives, open doors, and pay for stuff?
To a degree, that can be true.
I would say it's the society, social media, but back in the day when God created Adam, he was made to tend land and to help her and protect women.
Why should men serve women if women don't want to consider serving men?
They shouldn't.
If you go by the Bible, Eve was considered to be a helpmate. So if anyone was put here to serve, wouldn't it be women?
Yes.
Are they doing that?
No. At least a majority are not.
He said
What's more attractive, liberal or conservative men, and why?
I believe conservative for me specifically because they're just traditional and biblical.
What's the difference between liberal women shaming men for being toxically masculine and conservative women shaming men for not being masculine enough?
The difference is with liberal women, again, it can come from the spirit of Lilith, where it's like more feminist. So they just want to talk about you, make you feel bad. Whereas when it comes to conservative, they're just trying to get you to basically be led where you need to go. Not saying that that's okay, but they're just trying to put a boundary on you.
For some reason, this day and age, it's not okay to be masculine. And I definitely agree. If a woman is saying a man is not masculine enough, he probably isn't. Because a man should be masculine, you know what I'm saying?
Well, in other words, okay, is a man less of a man if he can't change a flat tire?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is a woman less of a woman if she can't cook a meal from scratch?
Right,
We're
there we
boys,
go.
we're women.
No, that's not a good answer.
Do women define masculinity based on their preferences in men? And if so, how?
Yes, they do. Because, like I said before, it goes by conditions. Like, for example, a woman would say something like, a real man would pay for my dinner. That has nothing to do with being masculine.
Wouldn't that equate modern misandry to feminism and traditional misandry to chivalry?
Yes.
Don't both place women at a status above men?
Yes.
So just because you're anti-feminist, does that mean you're pro-men?
No.
Do you believe we're in a transitional phase between women being old-fashioned and being independent?
Yes, we're already there.
If so, what are we transitioning to?
Feminism.
I hope we're transitioning to women and men being equal.
We're transitioning into a lot of women being cat ladies.
A lot of women
Why would there
being
be
cat
any
ladies.
incentive for women to change when they can currently pick and choose the best of both worlds?
We don't do that. That's a sexist view to think that we pick and choose.
Here we go.
Do you think a woman would be welcomed at a woman's march if she's pro-life or has traditional values?
Nope.
So do feminists really care
Not
about all
nowadays.
women or just the women who agree with them?
Feminists do not care about women.
So is it really about women's choice?
No, because it's not allowing each individual woman to decide for herself. It's not respecting each individual woman. It's conforming to a propaganda.
Uh-oh. The truth. On that note, I'm going to holler at y'all later. I appreciate whoever, out there watching. Peace.